Greetings and welcome to the basement. This is going to be the start of a little video series I'm going to do on using Fungus to create adventure games in Unity. Now, of course, you can do a lot more with Fungus than just create adventure games, but it's a pretty awesome tool for doing that. Now, I'm not going to go over too much the bare-bone basics of Fungus. I'm going to touch on them lightly, but I'm not going to spend too much time on them, mainly because honestly, the guys that make Fungus, they have an excellent YouTube tutorial series already done. They've got excellent documentation, so just on the bare-bone basics of how to use Fungus, they've already got that covered. So I'm going to focus more on how do you take those tools and make an adventure game. All right, so let's get a few things set up here. And the first thing we want to set up is actually not in Unity. It would be drawing out our adventure game. Now, when I say adventure game, I'm thinking sort of in the old point-and-click style. These are really good games where, especially if you've got a somewhat complex story that you want to tell, but you've got fairly limited art assets that, you've got to really maximize the usage out of. Still backgrounds, still character portraits. These are a great way of doing this. Now, that said, of course, we need to have a general idea of what we're doing, and what I would strongly recommend is getting an oversized piece of graph paper, or even just a regular-sized piece of paper, and sketching things out. Now, of course, showing hand-drawn sketches would be a mite difficult with my one-cut format, and so I found this tool, draw.io, pretty good. This went in here to create diagram, chose the maps, and I chose this map format here to create a diagram, which I've already created, and here it is. And so this is a very basic adventure. We need some rope to go on an adventure. We do not have rope. The shopkeeper has rope, but he needs rock candy from a cave. Also, he's a bear. Just go with it. And so the first thing I'm going to want to do here is, okay, I need to, at the bare minimum, yeah, see what I did there? I want to know, I know, I should be sorry, but I'm not. I want to know where my locations are. So I'm going to go ahead and start dropping some things in. I'm going to take this ellipse, drop it in. That is horribly large. So I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. Use as default style, and hopefully that remembers it. Nope, okay. Like I said, I just found this program tonight, and I'm still getting used to it. So I'm going to have a town, or I should say a town center. I'll just Control-C, Control-V off of that. I'm also going to need a shop. And then, of course, I need the cave that I'm going to be going into. So over here, and this will be my outside cave. And then I'm going to have a couple of things in here. Let's see here. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 parts to this cave. Mainly because I want to show a couple of different ways of handling transitions. So I'm going to call this Passage 1. I will call this Passage 2. I'm also going to specify that this is where my candy is. I'm going to call this Upper Passage. And what I want to do is next is figure out, okay, these are my locations. Now I'm going to want to see how do these connect together. So initially I'm going to use the bidirectional connector, drag this over here. I have a bidirectional connection between the town center and the shop, indicating I can go back and forth. Do this again. Oops, missed my connection. Oh well. Outside cave. And then outside cave, we'll have one to Passage 1, and oops. And we'll also have one to Passage 2. Now, in the cave, and then from Passage 1 to Passage 2, I will also have a connector. Now, Passage 1, I want a connection back to itself. So I will put in a connection, and this is a horrible idea apparently. Squiggliest line ever, but it works. It gets the idea. There's going to be a loop back passage here. And then from passage 2 to upper passage, I am going to have another two-way connection. For some reason I was thinking that was going to be one-way, but no, that should be a two-way. But I'm going to want a one-way here. In other words, like you come up above the cave and you can jump down to the entrance, but you can't go back up. And so that is going to be my map. Pretty darn simple, right? But it's important that we do this, that we have this sketched out so that way we know what we're doing when we go into Fungus. Because if we don't have at least a general idea of what we're doing, things are going to get messy pretty fast on us. So I'm going to yank this back over to my other monitors and then come back over here to Unity and get things set up. Now, of course, I'm going to need a flowchart window, tools, fungus, hack, behave, cursor, flowchart window. Now, my typical workflow does have this over on my other monitor, but yeah, can't show that when doing a YouTube video, so for now, I'll have it over here. And of course, I am going to need a flowchart, kind of important when working with fungus. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my game view here. There's two things that I like doing. One, display ratio. Set it to 1610 or the specific resolution that I want. This is really important for you new Unity developers because there's faster ways, I should say, of completely jacking up your UI than leaving it on free aspect, designing your UI to this window, and then once your game actually goes to run in a standard resolution, everything moves. So, very good idea to do this from the outset. Also, this, if I'm just doing for now, since I'm not going to be using any backgrounds, this is really tacky to leave this up. And since it takes all of 3 seconds to change, I'm going to go over to my camera, solid color. I'm going to change it to black because black makes everything classy. There we go. At least now it doesn't have the tacky default skybox in the background. Congratulations, your game is now more professional than some of the things on Steam. Okay, so I've got everything set up. And so the first thing I'm going to do over here in my flowcharts is I am going to start setting up my locations. Now I'm going to leave this game started block alone just in case I at some point for some reason need to do some of this initialization stuff. I'm going to start adding in things. Now I know from here that I'm going to need at a bare minimum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations, which directly is going to translate to nodes or blocks, I should say. So I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I am going to just immediately start labeling these according to my chart there. So this will be, hold on, gotta move my keyboard here. There we go. This one will be town square, assuming that I can type correctly. This will be my shop. This will be outside cave. This, let's see here. Passage 2. Now I'm keeping this roughly in the same order that my diagram is in. That's obvious. Passage 21. No, I'm not making that many passages for this. Oh, right, because I'm an idiot and forgot that I already had a passage 2. Passage 1, passage 2. I'm doing this in the same layout. Obviously, that's not required, but just makes it a little bit easier. Assuming you don't forget that you already had a passage 1. 2. I'm failing miserably at speaking right now. Okay. So we've got everything laid out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off here with the town square and get my transitions, start putting in my transitions here. Now remember from looking at the tutorials, how we do transitions is, of course, we add a command, we go into narrative, and we go into menu is how we do these. And I'm also going to add in here a menu for Leave for Adventure. So go to Shop. This is going to be go to Caves and put in another one. We use the duplicate button here. Leave for Adventure. Ah, no. You saw nothing. Leave for Adventure. And I'm going to set these up. So obviously going to the shop is going to target the shop. Going to the caves is obviously going to target the outside cave node. And I don't have a node for this one yet, which is kind of an artificial way of demonstrating one of the key points when working with fungus. When in doubt, add a new block. Seriously, 90% of problems in fungus can be solved by adding a new block. So I'm going to add in a new block here. I'm just going to call this leave, and we will come back to this in a moment. But I do want to go ahead and link this up. Now, in the shop, I am going to obviously need to have a return back to the town square. So I'm going to add in a narrative menu, turn to square. Outside cave. Now, outside cave is going to need couple of things. And you know what? Looking at this and looking at this here doesn't really make too much sense. I mean, if I've got my outside the cave and I go straight to two different passages, yeah, I don't like that. Seems to me like there should be an extra node in here. Let's copy this. Instead of going straight into the outside cave, I should say perhaps have an inside cave node that I get to from the outside cave. So let's drag this in. And then from inside cave is where I can go to either the passage 2 or the passage 1. That seems to make a lot more sense to me. Of course, your mileage may vary on that, and of course my loop is getting completely messed up. So let's move my loop back over. There we go. Not that it really matters. Link that back over there. And so, okay, I will go ahead and add in an inside cave. And okay, so I'm going to need 2 menu commands for here, one going to the inside cave, one going back to the town square. So narrative, menu, select and duplicate, that would help. Okay, so enter cave, and of course that will target the inside cave. Notice an interesting thing about the target blocks. For whatever reason, the blocks are not sorted by name, they're sorted by the order in which you add them, which isn't a particularly big deal in this case because I don't have that many blocks. But if you have a flowchart that has a ton of blocks in it, that can get a little squirrely sometimes keeping track of things. And this would be turn to town. And that, of course, would go back to the town square. You can see here from the flow arrows, they've got the multiple directions indicating that, I've got the back and forth going on. And then the inside cave, I would need 3 menu options. So narrative, menu, select, duplicate, duplicate. So I'm going to need a leave cave, which will of course go back to outside cave. And I'm just going to say go left and go right. Now obviously I would want to make these descriptions perhaps a bit more narratively inclined if I was wanting to make a full game out of this, rather than just go left and go right. Passage 1 is going to need, again, 3 options. So narrative, menu, duplicate, duplicate. I'm going to have a go back, which will take me to inside the cave. And so you're a twisty passage. And for that, that'll just call us straight back into passage 1. And notice that doesn't generate any arrows. If you've got a menu option that calls back in onto itself, you're not going to see that arrow. And we are actually going to come back at some point and change that. But for the moment, I'm going to leave that alone. And then a slanted passage, and that will take us to passage 2. Rearrange my notes here. Passage 2 is going to need, again, 3 options. So plus narrative, menu, select, duplicate, duplicate. And here again, I will have the go back, target block, inside cave, slanted passage, it'll go back to passage 1, and a breezy passage, which will go up to the upper passage. And then upper passage will have 2 options. The first will be go back, which will of course take me to passage 2, and jump down, which will take me to outside the cave. Now, I'm not going to put a climb up option here. This is a one-way path. Perfectly okay to do things like this in an adventure game as long as it makes logical sense. We don't want to jerk the player around for no particular reason. As long as it makes sense, this is okay. And then the final thing that we're going to do before we cut this video off, because yeah, this is getting a little bit long in the tooth here, so I'm going to want to test to make sure that all of my transitions are actually working okay. And to do that, I'm going to come through here and add in a narrative say event to all of these with the name of the node. And that's it. Now, generally speaking, you want to have your menu commands be the very last thing. Because remember, menu commands are not blocking. Now, and I suppose at some point I can go over that, but menu commands are not blocking, so you generally want those to be last and any other commands ahead of those. Otherwise, you can run into some really weird bugs. So I'm just going to say town square, add in narrative say, you know what, I am going to copy you. And this is the shop. This is outside cave. This is inside cave. It's a little bit, what am I doing? That's why I did that. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, perhaps, to be doing this. I mean, I'm going to be needing narrative says in here anyways to handle, well, the narrative descriptions of these rooms. But I have generally found it best to take things slow, one step at a time. If my transitions are screwed up, and it's easy, especially once you start getting a lot of nodes or a lot of blocks in, to screw up your transitions, that's just going to make life difficult for me later on when I'm trying to put in actual mechanics and logic, and you can't do this until you've done that type of thing. Now, the only other thing that I have that's going to cause me trouble is this leave, and, well, I'm going to leave it alone for the moment, because I'll come back to that once we start adding in logic. And so the final thing that I'm going to do is on my start block here, I am going to put in a flow call event command here, and I am going to call the town square. So now what should happen is I should start in the town square, and I should be able to reach the shop, outside cave, inside cave, so on and so forth. So hit the play button. Okay, town square, go to shop. Excellent. Back to the square. Go to the caves. Enter the cave. Going left takes me to passage 1. Twisty takes me back to passage 1. Going back is inside. Slanted takes me to passage 2. Going back takes me inside. Going right, passage 2. Breezy upper. Going back takes me to passage 2. Oops, and I think I goofed up on Breezy. Didn't move that say command. I need to go back and fix that. Jump down takes me to outside cave. Return to town takes me to town square. Excellent. And you know what? That's why we go through and check things, because sure enough, I have that say in the wrong spot. That needs to be fixed. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cut this video off here because it's getting a little bit long. This is just the basic setup phase. So I now have all of my locations set up. I am definitely going to need to add in a whole bunch more blocks, which we will see as we continue on adding in some of the logic here. But that shall be for another video. So until then, take care.